I'd like to get back to the Gemara on Samachayim at Beis. Abaye had stated the principle of shtika kodo, that silence is the equivalent of admission in three applications. Just to say it over, because we have to tosis, and there's a run that has difficulty with tosis. Amar Abaye, Amalo eid echod, ochalta chelev. A single witness says you ate non-kosher fat, which normally carries the liability of kores, and you ate it inadvertently. B'shogeg, you see it? Ba'alo shosek. And the individual who's told this by the single witness remains silent. Nemon. The eid echod is believed. Okay? No. What is the connotation nemon? When we say eid echod nem b'yisurim, that means the witness is believed. Man has no idea whether this is kosher or not kosher. And the witness says, I know it's kosher, you're permitted to eat it. So what's nemon? He's believed. Why is the person permitted to eat? Because he's relying on the testimony of the single witness, although he has no idea whether it is or whether it's not. Torah says you have a right to rely on. Every Jew has credibility in this area as long as he observes dietary laws. Okay, so you have a right to believe him. That's the connotation of Nemon. We see Rabbeinu Tam doesn't explain the Gemara this way, because the connotation of Nemon is he's believed. The eid echod is believed. The Ran, the Tosas Rabbeinu Tam explains what's Nemon mean. Nemon means that when an eid echod says this, and he presents it in a way where the person believes what the eid echod says, he believes that the single witness is credible, that's when you have to bring the chatos. As we'll see Tosas in a moment. Let's Vitana Tuna, and to support, let's talk about chelev. Amalo eid echod ochalto chelev. Quoting a Mishnah in Krisus, a single witness says to someone, "You ate chelev." V'lo omer lo ochalti. And the individual who the eid echod says he did eat, he counters him. He says, "I didn't eat." Potter. One does not have to bring the chatos. Time b'doma lo. Why doesn't he have to bring the chatos? Because he contradicts him. Ha ishtik. But if he would remain silent, mehemon, he would be believed. So what's the kind? Who would be believed? The eid echod is believed, right? So let's see Tosas. Of course, the Torah says no. Because Torah says to be obligated to chatos, it says, "Oh hoda ilav chatosa." You have to come to that realization on your own. On your own. Good. That's the discussion. We'll see. No, that's not sufficient. It has to be, the Chachamim hold, if two witnesses come and say to a person, you ate chelev, one does not bring the chatos. Although, through the testimony of two witnesses, you're able to put a person to death. Right? Why? Because Torah says, accept that as fact. Two witnesses, credible witnesses, is what is fact. Witness say to a person, you ate chelev. He accepts it, but does he know? He has no idea. It says, oh, hoda, it became known to him. So, according to the Chacham, known means that it was his own realization. And this is the example I gave to Gemara in Ksubis. Person records his testimony. He forgot about what he had seen, but when he reads it, he recalls it. If it's recollection, that's you know. If he has no recollection, all the basis for his knowing is what's recorded. That's not valid testimony. That's mipiv lo piksovim. The basis for the information is what was recorded. It's not that you have any recollection. So if the witness says something and it sparks your memory, and says, by the way, yes, now I understand, now I remember that there were two pieces, and in fact, thinking back, I did eat the wrong piece. I ate the one that wasn't permitted. That's hodei lev chatoso. But if two witnesses say the man has no recollection or understanding that yes or no, according to the Chachamim, he does not have to bring a chatos. Because the Torah says that the only time you're eligible to bring a chatos, you have to come upon it through your own realization. Even if he wants to consecrate a chatos, it's not valid. Reb Meir says no, that's not what the Torah is saying. He says if two witnesses are able to put a person to death, they're not able to bring about an obligation of chatos. There's no question. That's called hoda. If you establish fact, and the person now accepts fact as fact, Even though it's based on witnesses, you bring a chatos. That's Rameir, but the Chacham disagree. He has to come to realization on his own. And therefore, Rabbeinu Tam, we'll see Tos in a moment, learns the case over here when he shosak, a single says you ate chaylev, inadvertently, and he remains silent. So Tosas has a problem, but he doesn't. He's not coming to any realization. If he's fully relying on the testimony of the single witness, so how does he know? So let's take a look at Tosas. But that's not enough. It's like, I believe what you're saying. It's no different than saying, I accept what the two witnesses say. Right? And this case, nobody argues. We're not arguing with the Chacham. Let's take a look at it. Amalo Eirechad, Achalta Chela Velo Shosek, Nemon, Pirish. The Shtika Kodo, silence is admission. Vavinoda Lo Mi'atzmo. You hear this? And this is considered, he came to this realization on his own. We have a problem. We have difficulty. Why? But it's only the single witness. But he says, no. Amalo Ini Yodea. Let's say the single witness says, Yet Chela. He says, I'm not sure. That was his response to the single witness. I'm not sure. Eino Nemon L'chayv Korban. Then the witness will not obligate him. Why? Dichsiv quotes the pasuk, O hoda elov, v'lo sheyudu'u acherim. It has to become known to him, not that he should be informed by others. So if he says to the single witness, I'm not sure, that means he's not coming to any realization here. V'davka echod al b'shnayim nemonim. That's going to Rameir. But if two, umevi korban al yokid omer hosam, imeviu shnayim l'dei misa chamura. If two people are able to bring about the death penalty, lo yivil de korban akal, you mean to say the Torah doesn't give credibility to witnesses to bring about a less serious situation. 1 second. V'tzorch leforish halo shosek. Now, so what's the case? We'll say if he says Eini Odea, I'm not sure, he doesn't bring it, even though you have a right to rely on Eid Echad. Let's say kosher or not kosher. So we have a problem. So now situation. What's the case? Where the Eid Echad says, you ate chaylev. Actually, he's not sure. He's relying fully on the testimony of the single witness. Because you realize you ate a piece of meat that wasn't cooked fat, and he says, the two pieces, and it's something you should have been aware of. He says, you should have known. Person buys fat at a kosher butcher shop, and the butcher made a mistake. You can't say, well, you should have known, and you should have been more careful. The man has every certification as a kosher butcher shop. Why should it be? What way should it have been more careful? According to Tosas, definitely does not have to be mechatos, even if the single witness says he had chaylev. Because the point of hayluchol leida, you should have known. It's only in a situation where he realizes there was a problem, somehow he glossed over it. Now, thinking back after hearing what the witness says, you know something, you're right. So now he's accepting it as fact, not only because he's relying on the witness, because it's his own realization that he made a mistake. This is how Tosas learns. If he says to the witness, I'm not sure, and he's really, he doesn't resolve this issue, he has no obligation to bring the chatos. As much as the Eid Echad is credible, he has no obligation, because it's hoda elov. You have to come to that realization on your own. It has to be your understanding.
How about if the man is unaware, he's really totally unaware of the penalty prohibition?
Doesn't make a difference. Oh, you mean he says you should have been more careful? You're right. He wouldn't be obligated. Would not be obligated. See, that's the Ran. See that? No, it's going on the witness. So that's the Ran. That's the Ran's difficulty with Tosas. This is Rabbeinu Tam. We'll see it all the way through. He asks, Nemon seems to be the witness is believed. The way Rabbeinu Tam learns is explaining Nemon is going on the no, which means he's Nemon, but that's only if the person comes to the realization himself. So then he's not Nemon. He's only sparking his memory in a way which is causing him to accept it as fact. Because if he would say Eini Odea, Rabbi Tosas says explicitly, he has no obligation. I'm not sure. No. Rameir says. Chacham says even two witnesses are not sufficient. For chatos, specifically for chatos. Okay? Now, V'tana tuna, and we cite a Mishnah, that supports Abaye. Because the Mishnah says in Krisus that if a single witness says you're at Chaylev, and he counters the witness, then he doesn't bring a Chatos. What's the inference? But if he doesn't counter a witness, then he will bring a Chatos. So Tosa has a problem. Tosa just finished saying, if he would say Eini Yodeya, right? If he says, I'm not sure, he doesn't bring a Chatos. So if that's the case, the Mishnah should tell us a greater Chiddush. What does the Mishnah say? One, don't you bring a Chatos? If you counter the witness, say, even if he says, I'm not sure. So evidently, the Mishnah seems to indicate that even if you would say, I'm not sure, that would be sufficient reason. The sin would obligate him. It's only when you're countering him, when you're contradicting him. That's Tosa's going to ask this question on himself in a moment. No. Tosa said, I'm not sure, is not saying, I disagree. What you're saying is not true, is incorrect. The Mishnah, the way it states it, the witness says you ate, he says, I did not eat. According to Tosas, that's when you don't bring a chat. The Mishnah says, you say, greater chiddush, according to Tosas. Not where he says, I didn't eat. I'm not sure if I ate. But it doesn't say that in the Mishnah. So why does the Mishnah state the case where he disagrees? Say even a greater chiddush, even if he's unclear whether he ate or not. Let's see. Tana tuna v'lo omeluch, hodin okad lo achalti. That the Tana chooses the case where he contradicts the words. Huadin imama eini yodeya. The potter, even if he says, I'm not sure, the chsiv, ohoda. So now he's at v'hodinok lo achalti. So why does it say lo achalti? Mishum de boy lemisi sefer gabi shnayim omrim ochalta chelev u'omer lo achalti. Here, v'ho'ika rebusel remeir. That's why, because we want to establish the equivalent case of two witnesses. One witness you disagree with, you counter him, you don't bring the chatzos. What about two witnesses? And you say lo achalti. According to Rameir, you would bring. See, if it was the first case would be Eini Yodeya, I'm not sure, right? So we wouldn't have the chidush of two witnesses where he says, I did not. I did not. Ta'afilu amar lo achalti mechayv Rameir, because Rameir says that if two witnesses say, this Rameir not a chachamim. You must. So the reason why Rabbi Yehuda Nasi chose the case of a single witness where he counters the witness is to bring out Rameir's position that we have two witnesses, even if you counter them, nevertheless you have to bring the chatos. But factually, if you say Eini Yodeya, even Rameir agrees that's not sufficient to be obligated to bring the chatos when you have one, according to Rameir. No, it's not difficult. Well, the Chum is difficult. The Torah says you have to come to the realization on your own. Let's say a man is accused that he committed murder. And the accuser brings two witnesses that interrogated, and the ruling is guilty. What does the accused say? I'm innocent. Does he have a choice? The court is going to put him to death regardless of what he says. Because he have evidence that he committed murder. Let's say later it's found out that the witnesses were conspiring witnesses and he was put to death. So an innocent man was put to death. He did not, he was put to death. I mean, he deserved to die because God wanted him to die. But in terms of the crime, he didn't commit the crime. So the same thing here. Two witnesses, you ate chaylev. He says, I didn't eat chaylev. I didn't eat chaylev. So as much as the court, Rameir says, if two witnesses are credible to put a man to death, they're not credible to obligate him to bring a chatzos. The Chum say it's irrelevant. But the Torah says he has to come to this on it's his own realization. Because this links into tshuva. The man has to do tshuva. This is to complement his tshuva. The man says, I have no reason to do tshuva here. I never ate chaylev. But two witnesses say yes. But what are we trying to accomplish? We're trying to accomplish kapara. But kapara without tshuva is nothing. Therefore, you can't impose it on him. That's the position of the chachamim. Why? That even if two credible witnesses say they did eat, he doesn't have to bring a chatos. Because chat is only if you come to this, if you accept the testimony of the two witnesses. That's Eini Yodeya. According to Rameir, he would not bring either. He says, I don't recall. I don't recall. He doesn't have to counter. Doesn't have to count. Even that we already said. The reason why we establish case where he counters them is to tell me the chiddush according to the mayor. When are you not obligated if you counter a single witness? But if you counter two witnesses, then you bring the chatos. According to Rameir. But that's where Rabbi Yehuda Nossi set the case where he counters the single witness. He said it's only because he's a single witness, that's why you don't. But if it would be two witnesses, then you would bring the chatos. Every chatos. Every chatos. No, that's not chatos. That's golus. This is specific. Chatoso. That's to bring the consecrated animal to bring the chatos, a sin offering. Doesn't mean sin. Doesn't mean a sin. Sin offering. If you violate something which on a deliberate level carries either the death penalty or koris, or Mises Bezdin, or Mises Bezdin, or Mises B'nei Shamayim. No. Torah says goldus. You go to. Yalav Yovel.
So now you have some witnesses who listen to what the man said it out loud. You did not say. He said that you did say.
Therefore.
Okay. So now the man himself will accept what they say. It's not. I know myself that I didn't have to.
David, either you had too much sleep last night or not enough. One or the other.
I'm just saying.
The
witnesses come to a
wait,
man
no.
and say, he says, I don't recall.
Again.
I would be prepared to say,
Okay.
you know something?
1 second.
I'm going to accept you.
Let's make a differentiation between Yalav Yovo and this, or anything else you want to say. A person commits murder where he was forewarned. Well, let's say he was a chover. He was a man who, according to one, doesn't have to be forewarned because he knows there's no way that he did not know the seriousness of the act. Okay? Two witnesses, you committed murder. He says, I didn't commit murder. Now, why is a person put to death if he commits murder? Because he killed. Whether you agree or disagree, it's irrelevant. The act of murder obligates you that you have to be put to death. Eating chaylev doesn't obligate you in a chatos, even inadvertently. It's only if you come to if you believe and you understand, you ate chaylev. It's not the act alone. It's not enough. Because since it's based, the value of chatos is atonement. Atonement is you have to understand and realize it on your own that you did the wrong thing. Yalav Yovel, did you say Aval Shemon Esrei or not? Two witnesses. We heard you say Yalav Yovel. So if that's the case, I said Aval Shemon Esrei. Whether I recall, don't recall, it's irrelevant. Did you meet the criteria to be valid on Rosh Chodesh? The answer is yes. So if I said Shemon Esrei Yalav, that's why I don't have to repeat it. That's a fact, yes or no. It has nothing to do with realization to do tshuva over here.
My point is that people can conduct themselves in a way and no recollection of what they did.
Okay, so therefore what?
So now...
But I'm explaining it to you because this is a question of tshuva over here.
I understand that too. If somebody said to me, you ate failure, and I said, I have no recollection of doing it, and the witnesses said, you said, I would do tshuva. I would believe them, I would do tshuva. I would accept what they said.
Torah says that's not enough. That's not enough. To do the proper tshuva, to have the proper kapora, it's something that you have to recall that you did the act itself. Otherwise, it's not sufficient. This is the basis for the argument. Rameir is saying what you're saying. Accepting it as fact, you will. You will do it because you accept it as fact. Accepting it as fact is not enough. You have to internalize the fact. That's the difference. What's the difference between knowing and internalization? Knowing you did the wrong thing, the process, it's a different process. You respond differently. Because there you can't. There's no fact. There's no fact. Therefore, even if you say I'm not sure, there's no fact. Two witnesses come. That's fact. Once there's fact, that's enough. No, that is hohoda. That is Oda. You know you ate chaylev. What do you know yourself? You don't have to know. It has nothing to do with your recollection. If you accept it as fact, that's sufficient. Even though it's a different level of tshuva. Person knows he did the wrong thing, it's a different level of remorse.
What that person said, that piece of chaylev you ate the other day was chaylev. That piece you ate, that was chaylev. I agree, I ate that piece, but you're bringing to my attention that was chaylev.
But I wasn't sure. There's no reason for me to believe it was chaylev. I'm relying on you.
To say that it is chaylev.
I know. Who, the single witness?
Does that mean that now he has a realization that it's chaylev?
According to Tosfos, no. It's only, he says you should have been more careful because. And when he says that sparks his memory, and he realizes that it was chaylev.
In which case he has to bring a chatos.
That's where he has to bring a chatos. But if after everything is said and done, he says, I'm still not sure. He says,
Or I'm only sure because you're telling me that. And it wouldn't be good.
it would not be enough. Right. Not obligated. You can't. He's not able to. He's not allowed because you can only consecrate a chatos if you're obligating the chatos. There's no obligation. You can't create a chatos. It's not voluntary. Okay. Rameir.
Yeah. So I think just logically, structurally, it needs to be this way that someone wants kapara, that means we know that that individual did something wrong, so they could bring a carbon. But as far as someone say they're giving a halal Shabbos, so what's the alternative? Without using base, without being someone believes 100% they're in the halal Shabbos, they know they're in the halal Shabbos, are they withdrawing Shabbos? That's an alternative.
No, that's two different concepts.
I'm saying you can't.
No. The court can only rule on testimony of witnesses. We discussed this many times. There's a concept of gavra katila. A person's alive, but his status is he's the equivalent of a non-living person. If court rules a man has to be put to death, and after they give this ruling, somebody goes and kills him, murders the man, does he have a liability of committing murder? The answer is no. Because the moment the court rules that he's guilty, he has to be put to death, he's called Gavra Katila. He's a walking dead man.
Yes, but there is
Wait a second. Before the verdict, although the court was about to issue the verdict, in a moment, and they counted up the votes, but they didn't give the final ruling. And somebody's forewarned, don't kill him, and he kills him. He's liable for death penalty. Because until the court rules death penalty, you're considered a fully viable person. You put to death. So you don't, even if a person does something, he deserves to die. If we would have a court, you're not permitted to take your life because you're a viable person. Okay? The other thing is something else. That's kapara. If a person knows he inadvertently violated Shabbos, no bez, nothing. What does Torah says? You have to bring chatos. It's not dependent on a ruling of a court. If you inadvertently violate something that carries the death penalty, or kores, or misav de shamayim, one must bring a chatos. That's what the Torah says. So if that's a reality, so of course you bring a chatos.
If someone does something that the facing person that's a part.
Of course, it's a mission in Sanhedrin. 4 persons put to death, he has to say vidur. He has to do tshuva. Death is a kapora, but that kapora is only if you consider a dead man. That's the court has to rule that you have to be put to death. They don't rule you have to put to death, then you're not permitted to. Nobody's permitted to take that person's life.
So I know that conclusion is going to be, but the logic of someone having the right to give himself a kapara for one thing and not for the other, like that way. Meaning someone has the right to say, I'm going to do X for, this is a kapara for eating chaylev, and this is a kapara for eating.
We don't say it. We don't say this is what the Torah says. Let's say a person wants to mutilate himself for the sake of kapara. Your body's not your body. What do you have a right to mutilate your body? You're not permitted. It's Torah violation. Right? You want to do tshuva, or you want to fast, that you're permitted to. But let's say you're going to fast to the point where they're going to be serious health consequences. You're not permitted. You're not permitted to do it. Even for tshuva. Because here you're infringing on something that's not yours. That you have no right to damage that.
But the Torah said that a person must have misa for being
Chayv Misa means you have to undergo the process. The process is, but the Torah also says, but if there's no court to rule that, then it's Koris. If there's no court to give the ruling, then it's Koris. Koris, you can do tshuva. Koris, you can do tshuva. I mean, there are many adjuncts to the tshuva. You need Yisurim, you need Yom Kippur, you need many things. Right? But God will provide what you need. Suffering, anguish, Yom Kippur, okay?
And that's enough for the kapara.
If you with sincere tshuva.
Rabbi, Gavrak Tila, a man kills him. He has no right to kill him.
He has
It's
no
not-
right.
What?
But if he killed him, there's no liability of death penalty.
But it's not his business to kill the Gavrak.
Okay? You're right, 100%.
No, but he has no...
I'll give you an example. What happens if a person kills a non-Jew? Forewarned, he kills the non-Jew. What's the liability? Right? There's no liability of death penalty. Did he violate lo tirtzach? He violated the negative command, you shall not commit murder. He committed murder. It's called murder. But it's not murder that has liability of death penalty. Here, you murdered a living human being. But in terms of the liability of death penalty, because he's a Gavra Katila, it doesn't have that liability. He did the wrong thing. Violated a Torah
But
violation.
he has no liability.
Death penalty liability. Death penalty liability. Between man and God, he has liability. It's like murdering a non-Jew. He has liability, but it's not the liability of a death penalty.
You said that the man is convicted of murder, and before they do the execution, they make him do video.
Correct.
And this man is determining his innocence. The very end. What is the purpose of that video if you say that the kapora is actually the death itself? What is the additional...
Okay. Firstly, what is the language of the vidui? Let my death atone, not only for this for all his sins, everything. I mean, factually, that he's being put to death. Later, it's found out that that he was innocent. So, in terms of the crime, that was a mistake. But did the court put to death a man who didn't deserve to die? No. The ruling was he deserved to die. Why? Only God knows. Because the process was followed exactly as prescribed by the Torah. The witnesses were interrogated, everything. The court was a credible court. You had the right number. They're not faulted. The court is not faulted.
The 18 Zomimim are deserved to die also.
Separate. That's it. Not if it's post facto. Kasher zomelu kasher also. Once the verdict was implemented, you do nothing to the witnesses.
Why not?
Because that's what Torah says.
They caused the death of the man, and it was a false testimony.
Okay. Now, if you want to Sanhedrin Marcus, we'll take out some time.
We did.
You have to come a few other days
Well, we
to
did.
fill it in.
We learned it together.
Okay. Okay.
So the mathematics between his innocence and the video, he's doing the video and everything else in himself.
Correct. That's what he's doing. Because otherwise he wouldn't be in this predicament. Would not be in this predicament. I'll give you an example. I mean, you think about it. Rabashkin. You know? It's clear that the evidence was falsified. Everything. The man is sitting and until recently, I mean, he suffered tremendously. Solitary confinement. He was physically abused. Everything. The man. No, he had a processing plant, right? 27 years. It's unheard of, unconscionable, false testimony. The man is put away. Who knows if he's going to come out before 27 years, right? It was proven. 90%, 99% of the claims were thrown out. The whole thing it's known, right? It was trumped up charges. So he himself knows and we know he's innocent. So why did Hashem put him there? Only God knows. And he's accepting it. He's accepting it, and he gives strength to other people. Say, look, I'm here because I'm supposed to be here. Why? He has no idea why he has to be there. But he's there. And that's the same thing. Person's put to death. Well, the court, you see, they're not qualified. No, they are qualified. They followed exactly, the Rambam writes, the lawyers, if a prophet comes and he forecasts the future and he performs a supernatural act, he's established as a Navi. As a Navi. So the Rambam asks, but maybe the supernatural act was through sorcery. So how's that? How does that give him credibility of a Navi? Anybody comes and says, I'm a prophet. Do you believe him? Of course not. He has to forecast the future happens, and he has to perform a supernatural act. But maybe the supernatural act is through kishuf, through sorcery. So Rambam says, as the Torah says, Al Pishnai made in Yokum Dover. The Torah says that two qualified witnesses come and they testify that a man committed murder. Based on their testimony, you put a person to death, even though it's possible they may be lying. So why do you put them to death? Because Torah says you believe witnesses. Similarly here, although conceptually it may be sorcery, but if a man performs a supernatural act, Torah says you have a right to rely and to classify the man as a Navi Emes, as a true prophet. Same idea. So that means it's because you're following the prescription. They have a right to rely on the testimony of two witnesses.
And nothing happens to two witnesses. They
No.
give a false testimony. And the man dies.
Again, if it's post facto, nothing is going to happen to them. I mean, they'll be disqualified, but we're not going to put them to death. If before he's put to death, the defendant, then they will be put to death. That's kasher zoma lo kasher rosa. If it's still in a conspiring level, at that point, we put him to death. If it's after that, it's too late. So, right? It's not difficult to understand. If you remember what we once learned, it's not difficult to understand. Like I said, it doesn't make sense. It makes sense. You don't understand.
No, I don't understand it.
Right, so we said, if you remember, we mentioned then, it's a smog. The smog says, now what's the concept of atonement? That means if you do something, you could be rehabilitated. What about the person so far gone, you can't be rehabilitated? The Torah says, Lo yitein mizaro lamolech. The Torah says it a number of times. You're not permitted to give of your progeny to the idolater called Molech. So the Mishnah says in Sanhedrin, mizaro v'lo kol zaro. If you have a number of children, give one of your children, you pass them between this fire of Molech, then you're subject to the death penalty. What about if it's your only child? If it's not me, it's not of your children, that is your only child. Then there's no liability of the death penalty. So the smag, yes, it's a kal v'chomer. I mean, if you give one of your children, then you are subject. You're only, you're not. So he says, so the answer is, lo ein onshim min adin. We can't apply the kal v'chomer principle when it comes to punishment. Why? So he explains, what is punishment? Punishment is kapara, is atonement. Certain things are atonable. Certain things are so far gone, it's beyond atonement. It's between God and you. It's not within the hands of the court any longer. So if it's it's just the verdict before they put the man to death, it's still atonable. Therefore, you put the conspiring witnesses to death. Once the man is put to death, meaning it went that far that the testimony caused somebody to die, it's beyond rehabilitation. Now it's in the hands of God. It's beyond the means of the court to bring about kapara for this individual. That's the smag. But that's the rationale. That's the rationale of what we're speaking about.
Well, that would
Almost seems that if somebody kills somebody and the witness is forewarned, that's the difference. They're not forewarned, they're lying.
No, that's a different reason. There, if you're not forewarned, the question is, when the man committed murder, was he fully aware of all the ramifications of his actions? That's l'havchin ben shogeg l'mezid. To differentiate whether it was deliberate or inadvertent, that's why a forewarning has to be within tokatei dibur of the act. By forewarning, you know, if you commit murder, you can be put to death. 5 minutes later, he pulls the trigger. He's not liable for the death penalty. So he says, of course, Shem ishtali. He may have forgotten what was said to him 5 minutes ago. It's not clear enough that it was deliberate.
When the agents show up and they say, you realize that you're lying, and he finds out prior to the verdict, you're going to...
They tell him that, of course.
So they are forewarned.
Yeah, but no, Adam's Zom don't have to be forewarned. Does not have to be forewarned. Because the Gemara says if they forewarned witnesses, you said nobody's going to testify. Because you could be fully innocent and you could have other witnesses saying, you were with us elsewhere and you have a problem. And you have no way to defend yourself. Understand? Let's say two witnesses say Ruvain killed Shimon. Ruvain violated Shabbos and we forewarned him not to violate Shabbos. And all of a sudden now two other witnesses come and say, how could have you testified that you were with us elsewhere? And the other witnesses are lying. There's no way for them to defend themselves. Person says, you know something, I don't need the headache. If they're going to right away bring up this issue, you may be found conspiring, people say, you know something, I'm walking away from this. I'm not getting involved. So therefore the court doesn't even mention anything to the witnesses. Correct. Edom Zom, more Ksubas Gemara in Sanhedrin. Edom Zom don't need forewarning to be liable.
Post facto, those two witnesses are not deterred from giving false testimony.
What do you mean? They're not qualified any longer. You don't need a deterrence there.
Okay, they're not qualified, but they're alive.
So therefore what? They'll pay the price. Yeah, definitely. See, it would depend. He would bring an Osham Tolu. That he would, because that is exactly the case of Osham Tolu, where a person's not sure. If he counters it, no Osham Tolu. But if he says, I'm not sure, he'd bring an Osham Tolu. Now, if he says, no, I don't recall whatsoever, no. He says, I'm not sure. Maybe yes, maybe not. No, there's a difference. He says, I have no recollection, no Osham Tolu. Osham Tolu is, I know I did something. I'm not sure if it was chaylev or not. But I'm not sure. No, if he would say, there's no reason for me to be concerned. Let's say he would say that. So again, there's no reason to be concerned. You have to have, the Gemara says, it's libo nokvo. Meaning, your conscience bothers you. That's when you bring the Osham Tolu. No, you bring it as a government. That only protects you that eventually you find out that he did the wrong thing, then it brings a chatos. That's only to hold punishment in abeyance. But never resolved it, not resolved. Okay. Let's go a little further in the Gemara. A single witness says what was not contaminated became contaminated. Food item. And again, the individual owns the produce, remains silent. Nemon, he's believed. The Eirechot is believed. Quoting a Mishnah, and Eirechot says your tyrus became contaminated, and he says they were not contaminated. Potter. Right? He's lo nitmes. Time lo. Why does it retain its pure status? Is because he counted the witness, so ishtik. But if he would remain silent, Mehemet, he would be believed. See, the Ran, he's bothered. I just bring this out. We'll just end with this. We discussed earlier. A woman says, I'm your wife. And he says, you're not my wife. What's her status? The Mishnah said earlier, she's not permitted in his relatives, and he's permitted in her relatives. What is it? So, what do you mean? If you remain silent, the tyrus atomic. Right? He's believed. It has nothing to do with the credibility of the single witness. It's shav nafshach yisura. I believe this is not kosher. It's not kosher. So that's bothering the Ram. Why does it say nemon? He's believed. Shav nafshach yisura. We'll continue this.